Imagine this for a second. A political leader comes to you asking for your vote, your trust, to govern the entire country. But then they say, well, we'll only tell you who our actual leader is, the prime minister candidate, after we've won the power. How does that sit with you? It feels a bit like, say, walking into a car showroom here in Kuala Lumpur, wanting a new car. And the salesperson says, great, just pay first, sign all the papers, and then we'll reveal which car you've actually bought. They might promise you something amazing, a top-of-the-line model, but you could just as easily end up with, well, something much less impressive, maybe something that barely runs. You wouldn't stand for that in your everyday life, would you? So why should we accept it from those asking to lead the nation?
And this isn't just some abstract thought experiment. This exact situation, this political strategy, it's really at the center of some major discussions happening right now in Malaysian politics. It's definitely sparking a lot of debate, among the public and certainly between the different political groups.
Right. So what does this kind of approach actually signal? Is it confidence, like a clever strategy, or maybe something about their internal workings? We're really curious what you listening think about this whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try and unpack this a bit. It kicked off with some pretty direct statements from key political figures recently. It seems to have started, really, with Datuk Hashim Jasin. He's the spiritual leader of Parti Islamist Malaysia.
Right, and that's a position with, well, considerable religious authority and often a lot of political weight within the party, kind of their moral guide, you could say.
Exactly. And he came out and declared that his party, Parti Islamist Malaysia, and their coalition, Perikatan Nasional, they have loads of capable leaders, plenty of people fit for the prime minister job. But, and this is the key part, he said they'd only actually name their candidate after they get the mandate to govern. Whether that happens, soon or maybe after the next general election, the 16th one.
And what's really interesting there is the belief underneath it all. Hashim Jasin basically argued that Parti Islamist Malaysia and Perikatan Nasional would do a much better job governing than the current unity government under Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim. Their whole strategy seems to be banking on the idea that once they have the power, the right leader will just sort of emerge from their group.
Okay, so a bold claim and a strategy reveal. Predictably, that didn't just go unnoticed.
Not at all.
A Central Committee member from the People's Justice Party, that's Masli Malek, he responded pretty quickly. And it wasn't just criticism, it was an offer.
Yes, quite a pointed offer, too. He essentially suggested that Parti Islamist Malaysia should just ditch Perikatan Nasional and join the unity government instead.
Interesting tactic. What was his reasoning?
Well, his argument was sharp. He claimed that Parti Islamist Malaysia apparently does not trust its own current coalition leaders, Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin and Datuk Seri Hamzah Zainuddin. He implied that, an alliance without that internal trust must be too fragile to govern effectively.
So, trying to sow doubt there.
Exactly. And his pitch was that joining the unity government would, one, strengthen Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim's leadership, which he framed as good for everyone, Malaysia, the Muslim world, and two, it would give Parti Islamist Malaysia leaders a greater chance of becoming deputy prime minister, which would help with national development. It was a pretty clear attempt to pull them over.
Right, a clear invitation, almost dangling a pretty significant carrot there with the DPM post. So how did Parti Islamist Malaysia take this offer? Were they tempted?
Not in the slightest, it seems. The response came from their vice president, Idris Ahmad, and it was very firm, unequivocal, really. He completely rejected the offer. He even called the current unity government a sinking ship. Strong language.
Wow, okay. No ambiguity there.
None. He said his party would never sell dignity for positions, basically saying they wouldn't compromise their principles for a government post. And he pointed out that the Perikatan Nasional Supreme Council had already decided back on July 25th that they wouldn't cooperate with the current government anyway, a government they see as being deep in a crisis of public trust. So the rejection was based on principle and a prior coalition decision.
And didn't Idris Ahmad also bring up that anti-Anwar rally from last Saturday?
Yes, he did. He used that as sort of evidence that the public was actually on Perikatan Nasional's side, suggesting there's widespread unhappiness with the current government.
So a very public rejection, framed as reflecting the people's will. But all this back and forth, the offer, the rejection, it must raise questions about Perikatan Nasional itself, right? About their internal unity, their confidence.
Absolutely. And those questions were certainly being asked. Was Parti Islamist Malaysia's stance, the whole PM later thing, a sign of internal disagreement or just a calculated move?
And someone from within Perikatan Nasional stepped up to address that.
Yes, one Saiful, one Yan. He jumped in quickly to counter any idea that Parti Islam Si Malaysia didn't trust Muhyiddin or Hamza. He made a really crucial point. Parti Islam Si Malaysia has more MPs in the coalition, quite a few more actually, yet they still nominated Hamza from Malaysian United Indigenous Party to be the opposition leader.
Ah, interesting. So using that decision as proof of trust.
Precisely. For Wan Saiful, that showed trust and respect for Malaysian United Indigenous Party's role in the coalition. It suggested a mature partnership, and he finished with a pretty stark warning. He said if Parti Islam Si Malaysia did jump ship just for a deputy prime minister job, it would be a very foolish mistake, something that could seriously damage their support among their own grassroots voters, highlighting the potential cost.
Okay, so it really is like a complex political chess game. You've got one side saying power first, PM later, claiming they have lots of leaders. Another side extending an invitation, potentially trying to break up the coalition, offering a top post, and then a very firm no thanks, coupled with statements designed to show unity and criticize the government. It's fascinating political theater, really.
It certainly is. Lots of maneuvering, lots of strategic statements being made.
But beyond the politicians' moves and countermoves, what does all this actually mean on the ground? How might the public, the voters, be interpreting this, especially the power first, PM later strategy?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? While we're not diving into specific online comment analysis today, we can definitely talk about the implications and the kinds of questions this raises for people. Generally speaking, asking voters to sign a blank check, politically speaking, it's a big ask, especially now.
Why especially now?
Well, there seems to be a growing public desire for, more transparency and accountability from political leaders. The idea of just trusting a coalition to pick the right leader after they've won power, it clashes with that desire. People often want to know exactly who they are voting for at the very top. It signals stability, a clear direction.
So the lack of a named candidate could be seen as what? A lack of preparedness or maybe internal disagreement.
It could be interpreted in several ways and likely depends on the voter. Some might see it as a sign the coalition isn't unified on leadership, which could spell trouble down the line. Remember the one mountain cannot hold two tigers analogy.
Right, that one comes up a lot in Malaysian politics.
It does. If you have many capable candidates, as they say, the public might worry that means many people who want the top job, potentially leading to infighting once power is secured. That could mean instability for the country.
And there's the trust factor too, isn't there? About whether the eventual leader would represent everyone.
Absolutely. Concerns might arise, especially in a diverse country like Malaysia, about whether a leader chosen internally post-election would truly uphold the principles of a pluralistic society or cater primarily to certain groups. Past actions and statements by parties within the coalition inevitably come into play here. Voters have long memories.
You also hear a lot of talk these days about wanting leaders who are, effective managers. Technocrats almost. People focus on performance.
Yes. There's definitely a strong sentiment, you could say, for leaders who prioritize good governance, economic management, and, crucially, accountability. People often draw comparisons to the private sector. If you don't perform, you face consequences. There's a feeling that perhaps politicians should be held to similar standards.
And the track record of past governments obviously plays into this. You mentioned the Perikatan Nasional time and power earlier.
Indeed. Criticisms of their previous governance period of roughly 33 months often center on perceived issues, like a lack of clear direction or policy effectiveness. When voters evaluate the power first, PM later strategy, they're almost certainly looking back at that period and asking, based on that experience, do we trust them to get it right this time, even without knowing who's in charge?
So the public might see this strategy not just as a political tactic, but as something that touches on fundamental issues of trust, accountability, and the kind of leadership they want for the country.
Precisely. It moves beyond just party loyalty for many people. It becomes about assessing the credibility and the perceived competence of the potential government as a whole, and a key part of that is knowing who the intended leader is.
So wrapping this up, it seems we've got a clear strategic gamble from one major political bloc to gain power first, sort out the leadership later. This has been met with predictable political countermoves, offers, and rejections. But maybe the most important takeaway is how this strategy itself is being viewed.
Yes, and what seems clear is that there's a significant portion of the public, potentially a growing one, that really demands more upfront clarity. They want accountability, they value perceived competence, and past performance definitely matters. This idea of a leap of faith without knowing the designated leader seems increasingly difficult for many voters to accept. The focus shifts from just who will lead to what kind of leadership will actually deliver for the nation and all its people. Transparency seems key.
Which brings us back to a question for you, our listener. How important do you think it is for a political coalition to actually name their prime minister candidate before an election, before they ask for your vote? Does having that poster boy, as some call it, really signal stability and a clear plan? Or could it maybe stifle a coalition that genuinely has several capable leaders? Is flexibility sometimes better? Something definitely worth mulling over as Malaysia's political landscape continues to shift and evolve.